Once upon a time, the infamous rover Reynardo plundered the floating isles. Then his mother called him to her deathbed. "Swear to me that you won't die on the gallows," she rasped. Reluctantly, he swore. And he whiled away his days at home with music, cards, and wine. But the Emperor had changed. He'd been good once, a shy, almost humble toad. He'd built universities. Then people started whispering about mass graves in the woods, midnight rituals, victims screaming. The Imperial Ravens would round up entire villages, and no one ever returned. The Ravens had come to Ubar scouting for ancient books said to be of great power. But the librarians had hidden the books, so they'd burnt the librarians. The citizens, outraged, had driven them off. The Ravens had come back with dropships. The kid had fled with one of those books. He was brave and dumb and wanted to join the rebellion. And Reynardo had promised his mother he'd protect him. The kid was looking down, watching his city burn. "Sorry, kid," Reynardo told the kid. "Look, if we give them the book, they'll leave you alone." "My mother died for this book!" "I promised her I'd protect you." "Oh, damn it." The kid had run off. With the book, of course. So Reynardo had to run after him.
Everybody, welcome to Stories, the Path of Destinies. I had played this game a really long time ago. It was in 2016 or so. I don't remember much about this game.
The two Ravens were staring at the kid like he was their dinner, which probably was what was in their tiny brains. "Hey," Reynardo said. They cocked their heads at him. "Pick on someone as ugly as you." Wait, that didn't come out right. "For the Emperor!" The Ravens cawed and rushed at him.
Actually, didn't know that you could counter like that.
A dropship flew overhead. He hoped they hadn't noticed him. The kid.
I'm pretty sure. Swear to God.
Oh, right. The Gate of Heroes. Someone's idea of a joke, making the skyship docks a gated community. You needed a hero's sword to open it. And the kid was on the other side of the gate. "Who let you through? Promise me you'll take the book to the rebels, or I'm gonna steal your ship. I'm not taking that damn book anywhere, and neither are you.
Try and stop me, laughed the kid. I bet you don't even have a hero sword.
And with that, the kid hopped away. Had to hand it to the kid. He was an idiot, but he had guts.
No,
Where was Renato going to get a hero sword? Ore and wind essence? That sounds about right. I'll need a workshop, though. Perfect.
Okay. Sword crafting. This sword, this is the sword crafting menu. Here you can craft and upgrade powerful swords, gather the required materials from the chest scattered throughout the Warriors. Okay. This selected sword is a current special power level. This selected sword special power at the next level. The resources needed to upgrade the selected sword. Top down order. Okay, I need 3 ore to get to the next level. Next level, onwards.
A hero sword. QED.
So I need 30 ore and 1 innocent to make sword. There are apparently 4 swords in the game.
This is what he got for settling down and finding people to care about. The kid's mum had been a swell cook, and she'd laughed at Renato's jokes, even when he didn't know he'd made one. And then the ravens had come to burn her. And she'd made him promise to protect the kid. But she never told him where the book was. Just the kid.
Leave your damn family on me.
He came up to a ledge. It was too far to jump. There'd been a bridge here before, hadn't there? And there was Peter, giggling at him. "How'd you get across?" he asked the kid. "Where'd you find a hook?" "I hopped," said the kid. Wise-ass kid. "Hey, look out behind you!" "Cute," said Renato. Ah, ravens.
Time to get a hook.
It was time to talk some sense into the kid. Just hook his way across the ledge and chase the kid down. Thing was, he hadn't used his hook since he'd retired. He'd done it. Maybe if he meditated at that altar there, he'd remember his old skills.
Okay. Each time you gain a level, you also gain a skill point. Spend your skill points at the altars scattered throughout Boreas to gain new powerful abilities or upgrade existing ones. There are 4 tiers of skills. The more truths you discover, the more tiers you unlock. Here, you can find the description of each skill and its unlock requirements. I didn't pay attention to that last time I played it. Looking a shield building enemy will rip away the shield, leaving it alone. So it looks like there's a story requirement, a level requirement. You have a skill, 1 second guys, I gotta hold it at the bottom of the system. You have a skill point to spend. Go and buy the hookshot skill.
It was starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot, like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember.
Okay, so posts can be hooked in order to cross gaps, press triangles on the post, or to pull enemies towards you. this distance.
And there was the Farfarer. She was the fastest ship he'd ever known. She could do the Kestrel run in 12 furlongs. Well, so the salesman had told him. And something told him the kid was about to walk into an ambush.
Stop! He shouted. I'm not giving you the book!
Shouted the kid, and took off.
No! Peter!
But the kid ran for it, and a goggler nailed him with its eye beam.
Oh, damn. Kid died. I'll learn from his mistakes.
The book was unburned. Next to it were the buckles from the kid's shoes, and a kid-sized pile of ashes. Damn it. Why hadn't he lied and told the kid he'd take the book to the rebels? The kid would be alive now. Really pissed off and betrayed, but alive. Oh, damn it. Reynardo picked up the book. He couldn't let the Empire have it now. He was going to have to get it out of there. He'd be a wanted man. Probably have to join the rebellion just to have a place to dock. Well, he'd hated home life anyway.
Stupid kid.
What was the big deal about this book anyway? Maybe he should open it and find out. All that had been years ago. How many? The war was a blur, and now 3 Raven scout ships were chasing him.
Where are you running, rebel?
Cawed the Raven captain over the loudhailer. Reynardo could see them cranking up their catapults.
Just going out for milk?
Reynardo yelled back.
Where can you run?
Laughed the Raven horribly. Far behind him, another city was burning. The dark cloud above its island was thousands of Imperial ships. The fleet was doing a thorough job.
Take us to the rebel base, and we'll spare your life!
It cawed. The entire jury-rigged rebel fleet was only a few islands to the east. Beyond that were only the pillars of heaven. A sea of endless blood-colored tornadoes. The rebellion was out of time. Unless Reynardo could bring a game-changer. Maybe he could. Reynardo had found out where he could find the pieces of the Sky Ripper, the legendary weapon that had exiled the lost gods. Surely a legendary weapon could win the final battle. On the other hand, his old friend Lapino had sent Reynardo a desperate message saying he had a brilliant scheme to save the rebellion. If Reynardo could only rescue him. Reynardo dived the Farfarer towards the abyss. As he felt the heat of the jet stream, the Raven ships peeled off, not stable enough to follow him down there. Now it was time to choose. Lapino or the Sky Ripper?
Now this is a part of the game where I sort of mentioned earlier about choosing paths. There's different paths that you can go down. Each choice is significant to the story, and there's multiple different paths. I don't really care about the rebel fleets.
Ah, Lapino. Apparently, the Mad Rabbit had sold a Pegasus that he did not exactly own. Lapino always wiggled out of trouble, given time. But he was out of time. The Ravens had figured out that Lapino was a rebel spy. If the fleet reached him first, they'd string him up for that. Never mind the winged horse.
Look at his horse. Wow. that I don't particularly care about, I assume.
Lapino had apparently managed to confuse the judge by arguing that he hadn't actually stolen a winged horse. He'd only sold it. But wait, where was the prison? The village was empty. Had everybody fled the Ravens? Good thing Renato didn't have vertigo.
Hovering device. I wonder if this soft locks me out of some areas. Like if there's another path to take or something like that.
People were frightened these days. Just 2 weeks past, Renato had sneaked through an empty town and listened to the Raven's call about the Emperor's new taste in ritual sacrifice. Renato's blood was up. He just needed to smash something.
No reason for me to be a filter right now. Chest. One more essence. Explore this back area first. I didn't explore all of it. Circle back to us and find out.
Firewalls only let you through if they think you're hot enough.
That was really bad luck. So I can't go back up that way. I can't go around again. Okay. Ain't no damn it. Better be worth it. Of course.
Come over here.
Yeah, get over here.
Ravens were landing everywhere. The advance guard. He'd better get moving. If they got to Lapino first, they'd eat him for breakfast. Or a snack. Ravens weren't picky. If they got hungry, they sometimes forgot to interrogate their prisoners. Even top spies like Lapino. Where had the mad rabbit got to?
Yes, my sister. No idea what's wrong with your iPad. Perhaps if you stop hitting it, treat it a little better, you'll find out the reason. Wow. One path gives me resources. I have 17 ore, so So it doesn't look like ores would be too easy to come by. There is an altar.
Renato felt like he was ready to learn new things. Thank goodness he didn't have to go to school for that.
It was starting to come back to him. Something you never completely forgot, like how to freeze time when attacking. The more he fought, the more he'd probably remember.
Attack immediately when prevents when previous attack hits to land perfect strike, bonus damage, and double combo bonus. Slow down time after a successful counter, so you use action, take a breather, and let you explode. Counter attacking now causes damage. This is nice. What am I doing to slow down time, John? First, and then do the I was gonna say aggressive defense. Defense seems like the way to go in this game. I do want to deal more damage in terms of like regular strikes and stuff, but for now I don't think it's necessary. Dash was like, nice, I like that. Combat is so clean, I can't go back. Kinda sucks.
Renato felt a chill run down his back. Or possibly a flea.
Ronaldo is clean, which is what your royal swords. Well, they're gonna lock me out of the upgrades here. No more. And I have to sneeze.
He'd missed his old skills. He welcomed them back like it was at a reunion.
Every So it doesn't look like time slowed down that much, but it did slow down, I guess it was.
Dirty and bloody, Renato finally reached Lapino. The rabbit was practicing his shuffle. Renato recognized the cards. It was Lapino's favorite deck. Oh, I thought you were in danger. I am. The ravens are coming. Oh, the prison thing. Right, yeah, we see this guard owed me 53 ducats, so we made a deal. They're very reasonable people, actually, for weasels. Now, I got a brilliant plan to kidnap Zenobia. We capture Zenobia, we find out what she knows, and that's the whole war right there. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Capture the Emperor's greatest general, who also happened to be a deadly sorcerer and, oh, his only daughter. That would be worth it. On the other hand, he could still get to the core of the Sky Ripper, even if he couldn't get the whole thing. It must have great power.
We're gonna continue with Lupino. I feel like I've fought enough for him at this point.
Zenobia wasn't just the Emperor's daughter, of course. She'd been Renato's best friend in Sword Fu school. And you're still mad for her, the rabbit reminded him. They'd been close. She'd told him things no one else knew. But she'd never told him who she really was.
She knows all the Emperor's plans, chuckled the master spy.
She won't give them up easily. She'll tell the interrogators, all right, said Lapino. Taking her would change the game, all right.
What does any of this have to do with the sun that got vaporized in the beginning of the game? Any ideas? No? Okay.
The city was already under Zenobia's control. I had to admire her efficiency. Renato shivered at the thought of Zenobia at the mercy of the interrogators. Would he really turn her over to them?
Maybe.
But this was war. It wasn't meant to be pretty. This chest was filled with reprints of the entire Sandman series. Reprints! God, what was the point of collecting those? Ooh, and there was something else.
I don't know. Reprints are alright. They're not better than the originals, but they're alright. It's a dead bunny and 2 dead ravens. Does the fire hurt you?
Hero sword. Ice wall. Ice cube.
It's a strong sword. This area obviously very concerns me to no end.
Huh? A lever? That was new. Most people still use doorknobs.
I don't enjoy like sentries and things in games because I don't know, they just make me nervous. He's just chilling there. I don't trust that either.
So, what's this plan of yours? Use me as bait, said Lapino. And he outlined a slightly complicated plan that involved geese, a net, setting the Farfarer a little bit on fire, Lapino dressing as an old blind toad, and Renato hiding inside a monstrous watermelon. What could possibly go wrong? Thought Renato.
I don't know what your hair brings.
Oh, this is gonna be fun, said Lapino as he ran to go set up his marvelous plan.
Email from work. I will get to that
If
later.
I craft a sword now, it's gonna be really short.
What are gems? Gem socketing. This is a gem socketing menu. Here you can equip powerful gems that will augment both your offensive and defensive capabilities. Your gauntlet has 3 sockets into which you can put gems. Select one of the sockets to see gems. Each gem has 3 levels, and its effect increases with each level. Pick up a gem you already have. Picking a gem you already have will automatically upgrade that gem's level. You can find gems in the chest scattered throughout Boreas, if you're lucky enough. So as an attack gem, a critical gem, a physical resistance, elemental resistance, shield breaker, treasure hunting, and energy on kill gem. And we don't have access to energy yet. 3 ores short of the next upgrade for the sword. Just hoping I would get there.
He wasn't that good. Yet.
There's no upgrade for me to have.
Renato felt dubious about the whole plan. With every step, he was waiting for it all to go horribly wrong. But against all odds, Peppino's idiotic plan worked. Zenobia's ravens ran off after the geese, the net dropped, and Renato jumped out of the watermelon and put his sword to Zenobia's throat. "Renato," she said, "are those new scars? They look good on you. You never returned my velvet jacket. It was my favorite. You look stupid in velvet. Oh, what does an imperial princess know about style? Oh, get a room, you two," said Lapino. But the fleet was coming on fast, so they put Zenobia on the Farfarer and took her east over the Nexus. She'd vanished from Swordfu School, from his life, without even saying goodbye, without ever telling him she was the Emperor's adopted daughter. Ah, Lapino was right, Renato thought reluctantly. She knows things. She recognized his look. "You're taking me to the interrogators, aren't you?" she said, wide-eyed. And then she jumped, with horror. Renato saw Zenobia plummeting. Then he saw the Nexus below them. Cats always land on their feet. "Ah, she'll head for the Imperial outpost," yelled Lapino. "You have to catch her." Cats can run faster, but foxes can run longer. If he ran, he could head her off before she reached her minions at the outpost. Well, he did love a good chase.
I don't mind a good chase either. Just not after a person. Enemies I've been fighting so far have been fairly easy, so... Can I dash from the hurdle? Yes. It's nice to know that I can do it with the dash.
I wonder what I could make with all these sword crafting materials, thought Renato.
I don't know, they both look like intended ways to go. What's that do? Oh, it puts me back to the beginning, so now I know the symbols are teleporters.
Boom!
Successfully doing that is something all on its own. I don't know if it's like
needed bridges anyway?
I am relatively untouched.
He was closing on her. He could smell her fear. He tried not to think about the interrogators at the secret base. What did they do to her? Maybe it didn't have to end that way. Maybe he could talk to her. But, after all, there were worse things the Imperials had done to friends of his. A crafting bench.
Finally.
Renato wondered what he could make with it.
Hold R2 to activate magic sword. Swords consume energy while activated. Left and right to switch swords. Oh, do I have any gems? I don't have any gems. I still have 20 gems on me, which is a good thing. It feels like I was gonna say Assassin's Creed 1. Nice.
Renato reached the outpost. The Imperials there were no match for him. Soon after, Zenobia limped up the path. When she realized he was already in front of her, she didn't even try to run. Oh, you left without saying goodbye. Again, he said, please. I'm enjoying this a little too much. She said, shaken. Oh, spare us the chit-chat, would you? Said Lapino as he shackled her hands so she couldn't throw spells. She knows all his plans. All the way back to the Farfarer, Lapino nagged Renato about how the interrogators would pry all the intel out of Zenobia. How that would turn the tides in the imminent battle. All they had to do was take her to the rebel secret base. Renato didn't like to think about what the interrogators would do to her. Couldn't he just talk to her?
I feel like if I bring her back, it would set a trap on the rebel base. Whereas if I do this, then again I would end the friendship with Lapino.
As they reached the ruins, Renato could see ravens everywhere, searching for the rebel base. They'd have to hide the Farfarer or go on foot. What if we get separated? Asked Lapino, for once thinking ahead. I'll show you a map to the base. Renato told Lapino. Renato, don't do this, said Zenobia. We were friends once. We... Shut it, witch, or I'll shackle your mouth too, said Lapino. And then, a few moments later, they touched down.
But he's a rebel spy. He should know where the rebel base is at. It makes no sense that he's asking for a map. That honestly doesn't make any sense.
As Lupino pulled Zenobia off the Farfarer, Bernardo readied himself for the battle ahead. "I'm sorry I nicked your jacket," she said. "It's just... oh, God. It's stupid, but it smelled like you." "What?" he said, confused. "Then why didn't you ride? Why didn't you first speak?"
Oh, save the romantic nostalgia. Let's go!
shrieked Lupino. So Renato launched himself down the path to the secret base.
Attack immediately when previous attack. I could increase movement speed. I could increase health. I haven't really got touched yet. I will be counter-attacking a lot.
Swell. He'd always wanted to do that.
This might just be being paranoid, but there was a door over here.
Smashing things was fun.
Yes, it is very fun. Very, very fun to smash things. Ronaldo smash. Another ultra. Workbench, but I fully upgraded my sword already. I don't have another sword yet. Oh, I have to craft the swords. I thought that's they were given to me.
"Can't we just agree to disagree?" said Renato. "No?"
Totem back here, yeah.
They caught their breath. It's beautiful, she said, looking at the ruins. This used to be the library of Ubar, he said. Before your father's ravens smashed it. Do we have to talk politics? She asked. That's not how I want to remember you, she said with an odd, wistful look at her face. She was as beautiful as she'd ever been, and as brave. Lapino huffed. They got back on the trail.
So if I went the other way, would that have, like, given me something? Oh! Did I turn back around?
Long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. One small step for a fox, he thought.
I wasn't paying attention. I was asking to do something. Now or forever.
As they made their way to the secret rebel base, Renato felt strange. Zenobia was his prisoner, yet somehow she felt more like an old friend. He wanted to tell her all his secrets, but suddenly the ruins lit up with thousands of fireworks. There was a thunderous roar and dust rose. The caves were collapsing. The caves! You've been playing me? Renato said, and he stared at Zenobia. I'm sorry, she said, and she seemed almost embarrassed. Then everything went dark. When Renato came to, he had a terrible headache. Also, Zenobia's sword was at his throat. And her shackles were gone. So was Lapino. The terrible thing is, he said, I really have missed you. Now that we've destroyed the rebellion, Would you consider becoming an advisor to the Emperor's daughter?
I'm no one's servant. Everybody serves. Even if it's only destiny. I like to choose my own destinies, he said. The whole point of a destiny is you can't choose. Oh, never mind, she said. Look, if I see you again, I'll have to kill you. He watched her ship soar away. He would see her again, he decided. Even if he had to fight his way across the entire fleet.
I don't want to have to fight an entire fleet over a girl.
The Imperial fleet was cleaning up the few rebel remnants. For only a moment, he thought about running. But heroes don't run, even when the world is against them. Even when their cause is hopeless, and their efforts futile, and pointless, and useless, and death painful and guaranteed. He's decided to stop thinking for a while.
Kill the Emperor. Don't have that sword yet. I do have a level. Awesome.
Nice. That could be useful. Where did that go to?
Oh, wow, that loaded in the wrong way. Get some health back. One of the fleet ships.
Think of all the artisans he was creating employment for. Truly, he was a job creator.
Renato had always wanted a flying carpet. This was more like a flying tabletop, but it would do.
I hit X instead of square.
So close to you. Renato's arm was sore, his armor wet with raven blood. He was tired of death. But death was not yet tired of him.
Wow.
The rebels were losing. Badly. In some other universe, Renato thought, he and Zenobia had left Swordfu School together, taken other names and sailed off into the mists. But not this Zenobia, and not him. For him, there was nothing to do but forge ahead. Kill the Emperor and end this.
Kill the Emperor. Interesting that you think you can kill someone's father and still live. Back to that once wondrous smooth gameplay I was exhibiting. That's the flagship, this big one in the middle here.
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Funny that this whole war had come about because the Emperor feared death. And now it was coming for him. There was some sort of lesson there, wasn't there?
Still continued in animation, but a simple animation was canceled.
At last, he reached the Emperor's ship. Zenobia was there. Why'd you have to come back? She said, guess I'm just serving my destiny. He shrugged. You don't even know what that word means. She said, do you ever wonder if things have been different all the time? She said, and drew her sword. In the end, Renato lay bleeding out on the deck. Zenobia sat by his side, upset. What are you so upset about? He asked. You wouldn't understand. Why didn't you tell me you were going to leave school? I was afraid you'd convince me not to. I guess I'll have to buy you a drink in the halls of the Valiant then, he told her. And then he was gone.
Okay, that was weird. He could have sworn he just died. Instead, he was on the Farfarer, sailing away from Ubar. And it was still burning. He'd fled burning Ubar years ago, hadn't he? And now he was back there. Had all those years fighting the Empire been nothing but a vision into the future? A useful vision if it was true. He'd learned something. Zenobia still had feelings for him. He'd made bad choices. But now, when the real battle came, he wouldn't make those choices. He wouldn't make the same mistake twice. The book's pages began to flip backwards, towards the beginning. And he realized that his adventure was just beginning. The clouds parted over the Isles of Boreas. It was time to choose. The rebellion was in trouble. Ravens were scouting for the secret rebel base. They needed a game changer. Pieces of the Sky Ripper had surfaced. Or so a scholar in the mountains had told him. Surely the weapon that banished the lost gods could defeat the Emperor. Also, a temple had risen out of empty desert. The Emperor had brought the Sky Ripper pieces up out of ancient burial by his obscene rituals. Could this be where the Iblis stone was hidden? Someone better get it before he does, thought Reynardo. On the other hand, his old friend Lupino needed rescuing. Lupino was no game changer, but could Reynardo really leave an old friend to the Ravens?
Lupino disappeared on me. I'm very tempted by this new temple thing.
The island was windswept desert. No one went there except ostriches and ostrich hunters. The Iblis stone. It sounded ominous. It sounded powerful. If the Emperor was searching for it, it must be dangerous. And so, Reynardo went ostrich hunting. Every child could sing verses about the Sky Ripper, but ancient codices held hints of other things. A stone that ate souls, a ruby that drank blood, a jewel only a righteous man could give away. Were all these things the Iblis stone? Long hidden in a buried temple? Another ancient item that was only resurfacing now? Drawn up from the deeps by the Emperor's horrific rituals? You know, ore is pretty heavy to carry. You know what's not? A new sword.
Which makes no sense because you'd be forging that ore into the sword, which would ultimately give it the same weight. I can craft the fire.
This burning sword from the south was terrific for barbecuing sausages and ravens.
I need 2 more essence. I never got any gems, right?
And this is why heroes are called dashing, Reynardo thought. See? Dashing? Get it? Ravens were already here. Cawing in frustration, they were still searching for a way in. Good. Then he hadn't come too late. He could learn new skills. If only he'd take the time to figure out which.
Can I borrow that?
This was way better than being able to shrink down to the size of an ant. What was that all about, anyway? How could you convince a firewall you're its friend?
This is how. Finally got a gem.
Renato hoped his mother wasn't watching.
Don't have a sword for that yet.
Next time, bring more birds.
The Ravens at least could not get past this point. Obviously, the temple builders knew how to deal with tomb raiders.
Yeah. Got a switch.
Sharp? Check. Pointy? Check. Flexible? Check. What else do you need in a sword?
Felt like Tarzan.
It was a stone of the purest blackness. It reflected no light, like a void made solid. Nervous, he picked it up. I can make you mighty. Who said that? It was the stone. Eager, thirsty. Kill the Emperor's daughter. Now you. That seemed tempting and terribly wrong. Zenobia was the Emperor's greatest general and a potent witch. But they had been close once, and Reynardo wasn't sure he really wanted to be Emperor. Why not capture the core of Sky Ripper instead? It was the eye of a lost god torn out by the transcendent Emperor to power his greatest weapon. Not the core, said the stone anxiously. Listening to a talking rock? Ah, but the rock had a point. If the stone could truly turn him into a powerful warrior, he could defeat the Emperor with the very weapon the wicked old toad had sought for himself. To be a hero, you had to sacrifice old friends sometimes, especially when they've become enemies.
I felt like being evil. After this path is sorted out, I'll end the live stream.
As he placed the impossibly black crystal in his gauntlet, Reynardo had a sudden vision. Charred fields covered in dead ravens below a black sun. Was it the time of the lost gods before the transcendent Emperor? Was it the future? Feed these souls, it whispered. He could feel the stone's hunger for souls, its thirst for blood. All right, I get it. This was going to be interesting.
Leads nowhere to the devilish stump.
What were these poles exactly? Parking meters from the time of the lost gods?
They're useful, that's all. Gimme.
a hookup. The ravens on Zenobia's island were no match for Reynardo. They screamed as the stones sucked out their souls. And with each death, he felt stronger. Take the power, the stone told him.
Put away the hero sword because I'm not being
Hey.
a hero right now.
Hey, a workbench! He could try out his new bling. This couldn't be good for global warming.
Treasure hunter.
This sword from the frigid north was really useful for making popsicles and birdicles. Who are you looking at? Oh, right. No one. He was practically sure he'd find something useful in one of these things.
Oh my god. Some elemental resistance, but no help.
Reynardo felt a little better.
Okay.
Zenobia was waiting for Renato. She was alone, confident as always. Fire danced at the tips of her claws.
Are you here to surrender? She seemed as cocksure as he felt. But she didn't know he had the stone. And I've missed you too, love. He chuckled. She spotted the stone and bolted without another word.
You shall not pass!
Already, Renato knew more than he ever had. But about what? Finally, Renato caught up to her. He had never seen her scared before. At school, she'd been the determined, brave one. Now her eyes were wide, frightened. He didn't like seeing her this way. Kill her, whispered the stone. You cannot win your rebellion without it. Please. No, said Zenobia. Not that way. Oh, they had been so close once. Could he really feed her soul to his demonic gem? But if he spared her, he would not get the full power of the stone. Oh, how could he be the hero he wanted to be? With a flick of his wrist, he slashed Zenobia's throat. Her eyes widened even more. And then the light went out of them. Renato felt amazing. Power was rushing into him like water from a burst dam. Oh, such brilliance, exulted the Iblis stone. Tasty. He felt a bit bad about killing her. He was pretty sure she still loved him. But needs must when the devil drives. Renato returned to the Farfarer and set a course for the Nexus. The Empire had a communication outpost there. He could call the Emperor directly. It was time to seize the outpost and let the Emperor know what he had done.
She killed me first. All this background noise, the mic picks up. So now on YouTube, I'm gonna have all of this in the background. That's not funny.
The Nexus was beautiful. He never realized how beautiful. Everything glowed. The wind was so sweet. The sun so soft. The stones so warm. The black raven feathers. Black feathers. Suddenly, his eyes are filled with them. He's falling through smoke under a dead sun. A voice calls him home. Is this a vision? Whose? Is this the time of the lost gods? Or the future? No matter. What mattered now was killing his way to the Imperial outpost and challenging the Emperor from there. Don't look down, he told himself. Don't look down.
skill point. Do grab damage. I can
Cool.
increase maximum
Wish I could do that.
3 dashes instead of 2. Awesome. Still handle pretty well.
He wished there were more pylons he could use the hook on. Really needed to construct additional pylons.
This is what we focus on.
Up ahead was Lupino. What was he doing here?
Bernardo! Hey, buddy! Hey there, old buddy! Please don't kill me!
Why would I kill you? Asked Reynardo, although he had been thinking about it.
Well, you've become... no, I mean, no disrespect at all here. Kind of evil? Maybe you should, I don't know, go to the mountains to have a think? See if maybe you're sure the stone is not all that healthy a thing to keep?
I suppose you wanted, Reynardo said, and poked Lupino in the chest for emphasis. Oh, had he just killed Lupino? Oh, damn it.
Poor Lupino. Should have tried to take my stone.
He'd go to the outpost, use their far speaker, tell the Emperor what he'd done, and then he'd go to the secret rebel base, let them know he was ready to lead them to victory. I need more materials, thought Reynardo.
Or I can indiscriminately murder everybody and call it a day. It's so fun to be human.
Reynardo rampaged through the Imperial outpost like a water buffalo rampaging. At the last moment, he remembered not to kill the far speaker toad. After all, he wanted a word with the Emperor. But there was only silence. The Emperor was scared, like little girl. Well, he would gather the rebel army and slaughter the Imperial fleet. Applauded the Iblistone. Tremendous. Then the Emperor would have to answer his far speaker, wouldn't he? Who are you? Asked a distant voice that sounded uncomfortably like Zenobia. What have you become? The mountains. Go to the mountains, urged another that sounded a bit like Lupino. Reynardo called the rebel council to let them know to gather their forces. Then he killed the far speaker toad. Why? Oh, because to make sure his sword was sharp. Oh no, that's awful. So no one else could use it. Yes, That's it. Then he set off for the ruins and the secret rebel base. The ruins were crawling with ravens. Probably looking for the secret base, Renato thought. But then he realized they're probably looking for me. They must be very scared of me. Well, here I am. You are the honest warrior ever, whispered the Iblis tongue. And he had to agree with it, for once. Who was as good as Renato? Well, they really needed to redecorate anyway. Is a very cool sword, thought Renato. No, seriously. He couldn't feel his paw anymore.
Really bad punning. But yeah.
I'm sorry. Was that your shield? Renato was so happy. The stone was the best friend he'd ever had. Really? Who would bury such a treasure in the desert? Soon, he'd go rally the rebellion and usher a new age for the islands of Erda.
Nothing on the workbench. There's a treasure chest down that way. A treasure chest up that way. Question is can I reach it?
Don't look down, he thought.
More essence is much appreciated. I need the other essence.
Urged the stone. Let me make you emperor. Come to think of it, Renato thought as he put down another raisin, why shouldn't I be emperor? How did anybody get to be emperor anyway? By making war. Not counting the transcendent emperor, obviously, who had banished the lost gods and started time. Yes, he should be emperor. He would make a great emperor. Right, Stone? Oh, right, boss.
Got stuck with something.
Who do I have to kill to get a drink around here? You? Okay.
These things really slice like ham.
The fact that I can't destroy them makes my life a little easier.
The long stairs. So he was close to the rebel base. Nothing was on fire. So far, so good. He needed some way to break the ice with this wall, so to speak. Bernardo strode into the council.
Let's do this thing. Let's make me Emperor.
They looked confused and nervous. Ah, had he mentioned the Emperor thing? He meant to bring that up later.
I mean, let's go win this rebellion. He waved his sword around encouragingly.
They ran. Cowards. He'd stop them. He cut down a few to inspire the others. But soon, there was no one to cut down. Well then, he'd have to attack the fleet alone.
More for me,
He said, unless it was the stone that said it.
traitors. Traitors, all of them. They'd run rather than following him, rather than cheering him. What should he do to the cowards? Anything he wanted to. After all, he was a true hero, the best warrior there ever was. No one could stop him now.
But first, finish him. The Emperor, that is.
Where was the rebel fleet? They weren't even trying an assault. They were going to miss a day in history. The downfall of this dynasty, and a new one to take its place. He didn't have to kill all the ravens. He could enslave them, and enslave the toads too. All the animals would worship him as a god, for he had once been a god. They would willingly give him their blood and their souls. And the world would change, would become familiar again. He was more and more extraordinary. This thing really needed a roof. Flames really bring out your eyes. How we do it, said Renato to himself. Wasn't making a dent in those shields. Renato was glowing with dark power. Already the sun had dimmed. He could do anything, he realized. He could wrap the island safely in smoke again. He was beyond a hero. He was going to become a god again. How odd, he thought, that the Iblis Stone had nothing to say about any of this. Well, no matter. Once he killed this petty Toad Emperor, he would bring back the Black Sun. It was definitely easier to fight inanimate objects. cake. He'd been promised cake.
What's my abilities?
Chill out.
That's my fault. I know I have one more fight coming up, I think. Or am I finally going to the flagship?
Soon he'd confront the Emperor. Again. This time, he'd make an end of him. He'd screwed up last time, but he had a good feeling about this time.
That's not what I was doing. Why did you target the other person?
He was sort of yanking his own chain, wasn't he?
This usually means that it's time to put the game away.
He found the Emperor and the Council huddling by his ship, plotting. They saw him and cowered before him.
Back to hell, fiend.
Croaked the Emperor desperately.
In the name of the Transcendent Emperor!
Croaked the Speaker. They held some arcane items he didn't recognize. He simply flexed his will and sucked their souls out of their bodies. And Iblis exulted. It is finished. And the void that had been a mere stone on a sword expanded, stretched and ripped like a vast womb. And a gaze black and pitiless as the sun passed through the void into the land. And so time ended. Renato stared at the book. He was still alive. Again. And still only flying away from burning Ubar. Had he lived that adventure? Or only dreamt it? Had he really died? It felt so real, not like a dream at all. and he'd lost again. Oh, he hated that. But he had made different choices, and he'd lost in a different way. It was the book, wasn't it? Oracles showed you your destiny. But this was showing him different ways he could die miserably. Thanks a bunch, book, he thought. But these were destinies that he did not have to fulfill. But he'd learn another true thing. The Iblis Stone was evil. It would try to corrupt anyone who used it.
So, yeah, I'm gonna end it there. And take care of my Crimsonites. I'm gonna go ahead and grab something to eat. Take care of some business, head off to work, and call it a day. Love you all, and I will see you guys next live stream.